So David Benavidez Sr. recently made comments saying that Anthony Yarde will be the toughest fight of his son's career so far, and that's probably true. It's an interesting comment from David Benavidez's dad. It's an interesting comment because you look at David Benavidez's resume and you think, okay, is Anthony Yarde a better boxer than Caleb Plant? No. Is he a better boxer than David Morrell? Probably not. And those are some of the big wins on David Benavidez's record. But ultimately, you do look at it and say, well, they may be better boxers, but Anthony Yarde is by far the biggest out of all of them. And Anthony Yarde, by no stretch of the imagination, is a bad boxer. So it's not like he's a huge downgrade from those guys. He is a downgrade, but like I said, Anthony Yarde is still a good boxer. He's got good shot selection, a good body puncher too. He's got an interesting style of fight. So similar to Caleb Plant in some ways. But of course, Anthony Yarde does rely a lot more on his physicality to get by and uses those advantages as you should. But yeah, of course, like I said, he's the biggest guy David Benavidez would have fought, especially considering a guy like David Benavidez, how most of his wins come is him using his physicality. But particularly, I remember that last fight against David Morrell, where David Morrell was landing shots early on and was boxing and doing well, but the later that fight got, the more David Benavidez was able to use his physicality, use his gas tank, continue to push the pace, and he was just racking up rounds. Now, David Benavidez could do that to Anthony Yarde. It wouldn't be as easy to do to Anthony Yarde the way he done it to maybe David Morrell. And David Morrell was not an easy fight for David Benavidez at all. He was not an easy fight for him at all, and gave him problems. And everyone was saying after that fight, well, David Morrell made David Benavidez look human, So I'm like, if you're struggling with David Morrell, Anthony Yarde in theory would be a step up. Anthony Yarde's a guy who's of course been in there with your Kovalevs, been in there with your Beterbievs, and you're asking, is David Benavidez as devastating a puncher as those two guys? I don't know. At that point, he's probably a more devastating puncher than Kovalev was at that point. And Kovalev put Anthony Yarde down. So, we'll see. But again, Kovalev is a lifelong light heavyweight. David Benavidez, I think this is David Benavidez going to be his third fight at light heavyweight. So, by this point, we're expecting to see David Benavidez has sort of grown into his body a lot more. And is able to hopefully start to see that power translate over to 175. That being said, Anthony Yarde's only been stopped by big punches. And not to say he didn't have success against Kovalev. It was a good performance against Kovalev. Rocked him. Emptied out the gas tank and then eventually got exhausted. And by the 10th, Kovalev took him out. Beterbiev stopped him. Anthony Yarde had his moments there. He cut Beterbiev. But overall, Beterbiev was the better boxer and the bigger puncher. But you think, is Benavidez on that level? I don't know. We're going to find out. Because the funny thing about Anthony Yarde's career, he's sort of never had that middle ground. Not middle ground, but he's never fought anyone in and around the top 10 outside of world champions. So we still struggle to find out exactly what Anthony Yarde's level is. Well, we sort of do know it is. It's sort of fringe world level. I think we can all accept that. But we don't know that because he's not fought your Callum Smiths. He's not fought your Joshua Boatzis. He's not fought your David Morrells. He's not fought those guys. Maybe he beats them. Maybe he doesn't. But he's fought your Beterbievs. He's fought your Kovalevs and he lost to them. So I'm like, okay, you fought the world champions. You lost. Okay, we need to find out where your level is. Is your level the Joshua Boatzis? Is your level the Callum Smiths? Is it? We don't know. But now he's getting another world title fight. And not to say I don't think he doesn't deserve it. He doesn't. But I'm not saying that. Anthony Yarde is one of my favourite boxers. He's from round my sides. So, no, mad respect to Anthony Yarde. And valid comments from David Benavidez Sr. Honestly, they're valid comments because it's not going to be an easy fight for him, I don't think. It's not going to be an easy fight. Anthony Yarde is going to come to fight, as he always does. He knows as well as everyone else that this is a world title opportunity. These don't come around every day. And if Anthony Yarde has 3 world title fights in his career and loses all 3 of them convincingly, he will struggle to ever get a world championship fight again in the rest of his career. At that point, I can see someone like Anthony Yarde retiring. Because Anthony Yarde doesn't seem like the type of guy who's in this sport just to be in it. He feels like the type of guy who, if he's not winning a world title, then this isn't for him. But we'll see. You know, I'm a big fan of Anthony Yarde, and he's definitely got past the victory here. He's definitely got past the victory because he's a big puncher. He's a smart boxer too, and he's a lot bigger than David Benavidez. He's a lot bigger. That being said, of course, David Benavidez is going to have a huge advantage in terms of punch output, and of course, he's the undefeated guy here coming into this fight. So it's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, we'll see what's next for both guys. Who do you think is going to win this fight? And do you think David Benavidez Sr.'s comments were valid? I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.